Future Commerce is brought to you by Vertex. Vertex Cloud is for businesses of all sizes, from small and medium-sized businesses all the way to enterprise. You can find out how Vertex can help your business by visiting them online at vertexcloud.com/futurecommerce. Future Commerce is brought to you by Omnisend. Omnisend is way more than just email marketing. Drive more sales and combine more channels with one platform. Learn more about Omnisend today at omnisend.com/futurecommerce.
Hello and welcome to Future Commerce, the podcast about next generation commerce. I'm Brian.
And I'm Philip. Today we have, as far as huge gets go, this one is a personal check mark as to someone I've wanted to invite on the show for quite some time. We have Michelle Grant, who is the Senior Manager of Strategy and Insights, Retail and Consumer Goods at Salesforce. We did it. Welcome to the show,
Michelle.
Thank you, guys. It's also a career unlock for me to be a guest on Future Commerce. I'm a big fan of the podcast and listen regularly. So super excited to be here.
Thank you. We are fans of the highest order in that we've sort of followed the career from, I believe, the Euromonitor days, so not so long ago. And just kind of thinking about the sort of like what I would consider the OG Twitter retail Twitter crowd, which is how we actually know you, or how I feel like I know you, although we're just really meeting for the first time. Tell the people who you are and sort of what your role is at Salesforce and what you think about on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, you mentioned Euromonitor. That's where I got my start in studying the retail industry in 2015. And then this year in March, I started at Salesforce in their strategy insights group with a focus again on retail and the consumer goods. So still studying the industry in a much broader scope because it includes both the retail, which is obviously distribution, but then the industries within consumer goods, which, compose apparel and footwear, grocery type products, beauty and health care products. So I have a lot of knowledge to be covering in my new role. But through a different lens. At Euromonitor, I was really focused on kind of overall strategy, particularly in a global view. But now it's really about the technology. How is technology impacting retail and consumer goods? And how will those impacts influence business decisions? So still strategic, still insights driven, but through a technology lens, which I'm really excited to study and learn more about. Obviously, you couldn't study the retail and consumer goods industries without understanding what was happening in the digital realm, but now it's a core remit. So that's very exciting.
Super cool. Yeah. I think it's so interesting to kind of shift perspectives and attack things from a different angle. And I would imagine that you've got all kinds of new insights as a result. In fact, you just launched Becoming Retail with Rob Garf, which includes video, which is so much scarier than podcasting in so many ways. You've got so many other things going on. Tell us about Becoming Retail and some of the new things that you're learning as a result of switching to the technology side.
Rob and I are extremely passionate about this content series. So we're doing executive interviews to understand how people shape digital transformation, right? So I read the trade press, I look at the quarterly reports, the annual reports. You can learn about a company's digital initiatives or transformations by reading about it and maybe talking to customers. But we really believe that all of it is driven by humans, and we really want to bring out that human aspect. So what are leaders thinking about when they're embarking on a digital journey? How do they enact that digital change? What have they learned? What are some of the barriers? So it's really getting to know the people behind these changes that we're seeing in the news, essentially. And so it's been very exciting to talk to people in the industry about their real life experiences in bringing digital to their organizations. The other thing that we did is a global survey of retail leaders to quantify some of these behaviors, to serve as a blueprint for other leaders and emerging leaders to follow going forward. So we've learned so much, even though the program is only a couple of months old now. One of the things that really struck me is the emphasis on the customer as far as setting the vision, understanding the business needs to fulfill those customer expectations. And I don't know, had we done this like 5 or 6 years ago, if the usage of the word customer and being customer centric would have been as high. And I think that's an interesting transition from maybe more of a, product, place, price kind of mindset in retail to more customer focus. So I think that's one of the key themes that we see emerging both in our discussions with the leaders as well as in the survey data, is just the importance of being customer centric and working back from there. So I'm excited to learn more and get more perspectives from people about that.
I think there's something to be said about the platform that you have in the ability to speak with with influential leaders who I think have really interesting things to say. I think sometimes at least in the trade press, there seems to be a orientation around I hear a lot of turns of phrase, the technology for technology's sake, or tactics in search of strategies, and but I feel like a lot of that really is leveled at middling or waning retailers who tend to be struggling, and it's said after the fact. I think talking to leaders in the midst of their creation of their digital strategy or reshaping of their digital strategy, getting them in situ, if you will, in the moment of making these decisions, how they're thinking about it, is truly unique. And so I think, it's very timely, and we need it right now, especially as the industry is undergoing such incredible transformation and we're seeing so much growth. It's like crawling into the brain of an executive and not having to wait 2 years for the postmortem, right? And I think that's the thing that's really valuable about this moment, is the openness, willingness to be able to share some of those things. So, but yeah, Becoming Retail. Where can people find Becoming Retail?
We do have a YouTube channel called Becoming Retail, so you can see the long form interviews with the executives there. You can also connect with me and Rob both on Twitter and on LinkedIn, where we post snippets of those insights to drive people to our YouTube channel for the full interview. We also post, as I mentioned, one of the main themes was customer centricity. So we'll do a blog post about that, and you can find those blog posts on Salesforce. So yeah, lots of digital channels for this digital content.
And this is the year to be launching a bunch of digital content. We're all clued into it. Go ahead, Brian.
If content is king, then channel is queen. It's essential. You've got to have both in these times. It is an interesting year to be talking about this. And I think you're right about willingness to share. I think, as Philip always says, rising tide lifts all boats is probably the wrong analogy right now. We're not all in the same but we are on the same storm. And so I think that, this is a great time to be learning these insights. And I am very excited to go and watch these and learn more and see what comes out of this study. Super, super exciting. Now, we are on track for a record holiday 2020 as far as digital goes, right? And so I think that we've seen a lot of digital transformation, but with that, we're also seeing, with this massive increase in digital transactions, we're also seeing our last mile delivery services infrastructure sort of breaking down as we approach this holiday season. And I would imagine that a lot of retailers are going to have several week wait times for gifts and other
challenges. They have opportunities. Yes. They have opportunities.
Yes.
Right.
And, I think Scott Wingo called this upcoming event Shipageddon, or maybe it should be Shippocalypse. That kind of makes more sense, actually.
Shippocalypse. There's nothing that happens after the apocalypse.
What are you seeing around this?
Yeah, Shipageddon, it's going to be tough. We've already seen the logistics system operate at capacity or even over capacity because of this unexpected spike in demand. We did see shipping delays happen at the start of the pandemic when shelter in place orders were enacted, and people turned to online ordering as a safety measure, and to get goods that weren't available in store from non-essential retailers. So we've all kind of seen this coming because of earlier behaviors. It moderated a bit when stores opened and people went back into the store to make purchases, but those stores are still capacity constrained in most places. So that
Right.
means that there's still a lot of digital shopping that's going on, and we're just predicting that more of it will happen in the fourth quarter during holiday. It's usually a peak season for digital commerce anyway, but now it's expected to be much higher than any year. Your Salesforce predicts that about 30% of retail sales will be online for Q4, and
Hmm.
unfortunately, in the months that we've had to prepare for the holiday, it just wasn't enough to really build out that logistics system to meet that demand. So it's going to be a Shipageddon.
I think you had mentioned too that this isn't the first time that we've seen capacity constraint due to some sort of environmental factor. This one happens to be, health, health and safety related, but sometimes there's weather delays. There's all kinds of things that have tested the constraints of our logistics and supply chain in the past, right?
Yes, certainly. 2018 was a bad year for getting packages in time for holidays, in time for December 25th, because of several winter storms that disrupted the supply chain, or the logistics, I should say, and that caused a lot of delays. And if you think about what we're dealing with right now, if a storm happens, the system is already at max or over max, and so there's that element that no one is really talking about, is that there is an unknown with the weather. If there's bad storms, things could be even
Mm.
worse than what we're predicting.
No, it doesn't need to be worse.
Yeah.
Just a bearer of bad news.
Just thinking about messaging that retailers are going to have to display to their customers and how important that messaging is going to be going into this. You're really going to need to account for bad weather. You do not want to disappoint your customers this holiday season, as I have a feeling that they're going to be judging your performance going into holiday for their purchasing behaviors in 2021. So,
Yeah,
like,
it
how
affects the brand.
simple.
Like your
Exactly.
performance, your performance comes back to reflect on the brand, not necessarily on the environment in which the package is being shipped. It's snowing right now in New York City. Do you know that? It's October 30th. Like, if there's a year wherein something bad is going to happen, it's probably this one. So I feel like I wouldn't put it past to just add insult to injury on some of the shipping constraints. I guess the question I would ask you, Michelle, is: do customers? We saw a lot of patience in the way that sort of customer behavior adapted to the environment. I think about the lines that you see in the mall, or you see the lines outside the Trader Joe's in 90-degree heat in Florida. It makes no sense to me. But customers have sort of acquiesced to the moment, is that this is the environment we're in. They become a little more patient and understanding. Does that stick around? And do they sort of acquiesce to the shipping constraints, or are they going to look for alternatives such as like the Instacarts or other last mile vendors, or maybe even the shop runners of the world, someone who can fulfill this request in a differentiated way to get the product a little sooner, or potentially get it sooner?
Yeah, I mean, the last mile delivery players that you've mentioned really have done well this year. Well, Instacart in particular, when it came to grocery. And what we're seeing is that Instacart, Postmates, Uber, DoorDash are inking deals with non-grocery providers. Going with PetSmart has a deal with DoorDash. Walgreens has a deal with, I think, DoorDash and Postmates. So retailers are definitely hedging their bets by getting more third party, quick last mile delivery providers onboarded for the holiday season. Um, I don't have a strong opinion on this. I'm really curious about it. I feel this is kind of an area where there hasn't, aside from the deal announcements, there hasn't been a lot of research or analysis yet. Because
Mm,
oftentimes what these providers do is they charge a fee, and it's relatively, maybe like $5 to
hmm.
$7 an order. And I just don't know if in this economic environment how many people are willing to pay that fee to get this product delivered. Now that might change because of the holiday, the other kind of like, because there is a strong deadline and potentially bad weather, that people are willing to pay that. But I'm not sure, in addition to the payment, how aware customers are that they can order products from, companies that they normally use for their groceries or that they normally use for food service. So it's definitely a trend to watch this quarter to see how that consumer behavior reacts to these, industry developments. But I think hands down the biggest winner is going to be stores that offer buy online, pick up in store, or pick up at
Mm,
curbside, or going through the Walgreens drive through to get purchases. People are
Yeah.
familiar with that. They've used it before. They've used it a lot during COVID, and you can have the certainty that you're going to get the product same day, and you're your own delivery person.
I heard, so I had a conversation with Ted Shadler from Forrester yesterday about their predictions, their 2021 predictions report. And a lot of the like service orchestration, uh, uh, sort of differentiation in the space centered on companies that had made massive investments in both data and services that help them rise to meet the challenges of COVID. You mentioned the sort of drive-through capabilities of like a Walgreens. That's something that has come up over and over again. Is that that's something that they utilize an existing asset, which is data around dimension and weight, for them to be able to repurpose an existing part of their physical infrastructure, which happened to be like vacuum tube delivery for their drive-through for pharmacy, and sort of finding which products can fit in there, and which pharmacists are on hand to be able to go grab and basically do fulfillment from shelf through a drive-through. Like, I find this to be a fascinating topic and one I'm just not qualified to talk about. But this idea of utilizing an existing piece of infrastructure to rise to meet the demand, I think that's what we saw with BOPIS. It's what we're seeing with in-car delivery and contactless delivery at the door. It makes me wonder, and I'd love to ask you for reaction, although we weren't prepared to talk about this, but it makes me wonder how other businesses can rise to meet the challenge of this new level of customer expectation, not having made the investment 3-4 years ago, like some of the enterprises have. It seems like almost insult to injury on what we've called the prime effect of this inability for a mid-market or direct to consumer startup being able to continue to meet these heightened expectations.
Yeah, I think that is a very good question, right? There is a lot of, sales transfer from medium to and small size retailers to larger retailers for a variety of reasons, including the ease and convenience of deliveries, but also, they're a one-stop shop. So you can get everything in one go and stock up for 2 weeks. And because of health and safety issues, that's a consumer behavior that we've seen. So if you're an independent retailer or a smaller one, you don't necessarily have the assortment to meet that type of shopping behavior, and
Mm-hmm.
that hurts. As far as logistics, I think, if you're a small local, because there's also been a push, right, to from a lot of different areas to support local businesses, because
Mm-hmm.
They had to close if they were non-essential, and everyone understands that if you're closed, you're not making any money, and you'll go out of business. And there's a lot of externalities to local retail going out of business, and so communities are coming around to kind of promoting whether it's a local restaurant or a local retailer to keep them in business. And with that, people have a greater understanding that I'm not going to get the same experience as far as delivery goes as I would at like a Walmart that has the resources to invest in all these technologies and the labor to execute them in store. So I think people are more forgiving in the scrappiness of their local retailers. I know I've seen it myself when I've shopped locally in Chicago. Is when if you wanted in-store pickup, you simply like called them and was like, they'd send you an email, oh, your order is ready, just call this number and you can walk in and pick it up. So it's not a text. You still wait kind of like for an email. You don't know when the order is going to be fulfilled. It may actually take a couple of days because, again, they don't have the labor to pull at that hour that's just dedicated to fulfilling those orders. But I think that scrappiness and that, is fine. When you're going there, you're not necessarily doing it for the convenience. You're doing it to keep that business alive in your community, and people working there, and then spending money within the community. So I think consumers have a much higher threshold for inconvenience when they opt to shop at smaller stores than the big box retailers or even Amazon.
Future Commerce is brought to you by Vertex. Vertex Cloud is the automation platform for tax calculation and use tax and everything in between for businesses of all sizes. From SMB all the way to enterprise, businesses all over the world trust Vertex for their tax calculation needs, and you should too. Check them out today at vertexcloud.com/futurecommerce. OmniSend is one platform to control all of your marketing channels. From marketing automation, SMS, and email, to forms and segmentation, you can bring together different channels under one platform with OmniSend. OmniSend's powerful platform allows you to link together every customer touch point with one dashboard. And did I mention they have the most transparent pricing in the entire MarTech industry? Find out why brands like Fred Siegel and Unilever trust OmniSend with their customer relationships. Find out more about OmniSend today at omnisend.com/futurecommerce. Future Commerce is brought to you by Shipium. Consumer behavior is reshaping the future of commerce. Customers want their orders fast or free. They want convenient returns. They want to know exact delivery dates. They want curbside pickup. It's here to stay. There really is no shortage of things e-commerce companies need to do in order to compete. How can you stay nimble and also be profitable? Well, enter Shipium, the supply chain platform for e-commerce. Shipium is founded by Amazon and Zulily Vets, and it's the platform that brings the same principles and sophisticated software found in those companies to everyone else who is not Amazon. Manage core pieces of your stack like shipping and fulfillment with Shipium. See if Shipium is a fit for your team by visiting shipium.com/podcast. That's SHIPIUM.com/podcast.
Speaking of the Prime effects, we saw Amazon move Prime Day to later this year. Maybe touch on the effect that you saw of that shift. Is that changing holiday expectations? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, there's two ways of looking at the impact of Prime Day on retailers not named Amazon. The first is just comparing the 2019 July holiday sales versus what happened in October of 2020. And what we saw was that in the US, shoppers spent 71% more in this Prime Day than compared to the one in July of last year. But again, as we talked about, like there's a huge wave of just digital transactions. So we also looked at how spending changed week over week in the US and still grew by 21%. So lots of other retailers, not named Amazon, benefited from the holiday as they did in July, but they, in October too. And we did see when we looked at marketing messages that went out that about, 20% more email communications went out on the first day of Prime Day, and at least 18% of the messages that went out on the 13th and the 14th of October had the word prime or holiday in them. And it seems like, in
Wow.
addition to like just, trying to capitalize on the shopping that's going on during Prime Day, that really did kick off the whole holiday season. I've just gotten a lot of emails myself or app notifications saying, oh, your holiday gift guide is ready, or Best Buy yesterday just launched a surprise Black Friday deals. Target, is continuing to promote holiday type shopping. Everyone's revealed that, Walmart and Target have revealed that their plans for Black Friday is actually going to be spread out all over November. And I know it's hard to believe, but November is next week. So it definitely did kick off holiday for the retail industry.
Wow. And it seems like this is my own perspective. It feels like Prime Day might have, has in effect more broadly in retail as retailers sort of ride the back of the wave of the interest in sort of creating this opportunity for them to be part of a larger, sales holiday of some kind or some sort of sales event that's happening in the zeitgeist. But to have it during holiday feels like, Prime Day probably as a way to prop up a Q3, it sort of loses its efficacy in that there's only 90 days of a Q4 wherein to capture sales that are incredibly buy or trifurcated. Is trifurcated is a word? It should be. But sales that are being split up into mini buckets. There's a gift giving season, but I guess it'll stand to bear itself out here. We'll see what the actual effect is. I would expect that it goes back to being a summer event next year. If COVID permitting. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about something we've been tracking as like a phenomenon, is an idea of shopping as entertainment. We saw that during Prime Day. They whipped out the big guns, and there was 2 solid days of like live stream shopping, QVC style, probably more aimed or more generationally appropriate for millennials. I'm curious what we're seeing there. I know there's other platforms that are doing shopping experiences online that are way more engaging than say what we have in that's very popular here in North America, which I typically sort of call like spear fishing type shopping. It's not really meant to be a pastime or spend hours and hours. But I'm curious if what you're seeing on that side, if there's anything interesting or notable.
Yeah, I think it's hard for retailers to back into entertainment and to, especially online, where, like you said, most of the behavior is spear phishing. You know what you want, you search for it, and you get it, which is basically what Amazon is a giant product search engine. It's really hard to do inspiration and discovery. You've seen a lot of fashion, given the nature of the product, is much better suited for that type of on-site inspiration type shopping. Like, oh, you like these pants, here's how they can be styled, or here are the different videos, and here's your fall guide. Right, they've done a better job of entertaining and educating people on their sites. Same with beauty, because they're passion categories. So what we've actually seen, or at least what I've been tracking, is more the social media companies that were built for entertainment backing into commerce. And Facebook is the big one, right? Where they're enabling a lot of shopping features into their, either their, Instagram with their own photos. And now Instagram is integrating payment options or shoppable live streams So that's kind of interesting. And I think one of the things that is kind of up and coming, or maybe it's already well established. I'm not in the gaming community. I have become a TikTok addict, but I have not become a Twitch addict. So I'm not as like familiar as it. I'm not as familiar about that platform than others because I don't use it in all honesty, but it fascinates me. Amazon owns it. It's known
Mm-hmm.
have better technology for engagement. And we're seeing in particular the beauty space kind of adapted as, a live streaming event. So that's been really fascinating. So I kind of keep it, I call it like a sleeper hit, I guess, that Twitch is probably maybe the more premier space for live streaming. And Liz Flora just did a great article this week in Glossy about beauty influencers using Twitch to sell their product. Michelle Fan, who started her own company called M Cosmetics, was at one point probably the largest YouTube influencer in the beauty space. And she took some time away and has come back as an entrepreneur with her own brand. And she did a live stream of her gaming on Twitch, and it really drove a lot of sales for her product because she was promoting Daydream Cushion. And she said, according to the article, that she almost sold, or she did sell almost 300% more units on the launch day compared to previous launches, and that 17% of her revenue from that day came from Twitch. So that's really fascinating. And as far as like entertainment and shopping goes, I think Twitch might be one of the front runners with that. And again, it's known for gaming, but the executives at Twitch have definitely pushed into live streaming beyond gaming. Like there's cooking classes, obviously beauty influencers are on there. So we'll see if they're successful in enabling it. We will see if they're successful in enabling other types of live streaming communities to build up around different categories, and if they're able to help those communities monetize through commerce.
Yeah, I think there's something to this. We were all at Shop Talk last week, and not physically. And Philip and I just talked about this on our last episode, but seeing companies like Immerse, which is a startup in the live streaming space, and others kind of enter into that space, I think there's a lot of room here. Although I think, just straight shopping, sort of product focused live streams, I feel like that's one category. I feel like gaming, live streaming your gaming and dropping a product at the same time is a completely different effort, takes a different skill set. Like gaming is a skill set. And so I feel like, we're going to start to see retail leaders and brand leaders like take whatever passion that they have and then use that to live stream about that and sort of sell at the same time. You can't just jump into League of Legends without knowing something about how to play, because it is like you will get
it's a high barrier to entry.
Crushed. Yeah.
Right.
And so, and like, unless that's sort of the shtick, but like, I feel like there's going to be additional skills that are going to be looked for on resumes now that are non-traditional.
Well, there's something to be said to Michelle that I think is notable. What you had said is that the early adopters tend to be concentrated to a certain few verticals. I often say, and it's I get some flack for saying it, but having worked in the wellness space and in nutrition and supplements for some time in my career in the past, it's nutrition and supplements are the new pornographers. They are the early adopters of everything that tries to connect with a customer, to try to stay on the bleeding edge, to try to keep capture attention, and they are incessantly they're early adopters, and they have a voracious appetite for being out ahead. I see beauty being very much in that same vein, and if you see the beauty vertical, adopting this platform, there's something to be said about early adopters of platforms gaining a foothold there and proving it out for the rest of an industry and setting a new expectation from a consumer. And, I think that is, if you slept on TikTok, don't sleep on Twitch, because
Yes.
this is going to prove itself out to be. If TikTok is just partnered, I believe, with Shopify to make TikTok a shoppable platform, then I think that we should be looking. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say the S word. That's not Salesforce, but I did. But if that is happening in the world, it stands to reason that a platform like Twitch, which is an Amazon property, would be shoppable as well at some point in the near future. I cut you off, Brian.
Oh no, I was just laughing and saying I totally agree. Like, don't sleep on this. This is, I agree with you. Like, TikTok is something that a lot of people slept on, and Twitch could be that next step. And I feel like there's going to be other channels other than Twitch. Like, Twitch is owned by Amazon, which could present some issues. So we could see other platforms emerge. And so I think that's something I'm going to be keeping my eye on. Other streaming platforms for gaming that are not Twitch.
We forgot that Michelle's here, which is
no, I'm learning as well.
I'm curious. When this does go mainstream, if how soon is that? Maybe what are some predictions? We're like just looking ahead a little bit. What about 2021? What are things that we should be thinking about, and maybe technology investments or channel investments that we'll see big retail be heading to? Some thoughts that we've already covered here is last mile or 3P to 1P conversion, but what else can we expect?
Right. I think first point of order for all retailers is to get their fulfillment as efficient as possible. So you'll see a lot of investment in supply chain, especially around inventory management, and then cost savings. And then related to that is stores, as we mentioned. BOPIS is growing. In a lot of cases, for many companies, it was kind of we need to do this year now. And so it's about refining that process. It's still fairly inefficient to have people, it is inefficient to have people picking from the store floor to get it into people's carts. So I think we're going to see a lot more innovation in the back of store to kind of build like those micro fulfillment centers that we're seeing in grocery, to really make the buy online, pick up in store, or pick up at curbside as cost effective as possible. So it can be kind of, but the boring stuff is like where people are going to start to innovate in. But we are seeing more innovation in the front end of the store as well. Walmart, just this week announced that it's turning 4 of its stores into basically laboratories. And again, a lot of that has to do with getting those stores to be as efficient as possible to fulfill the online orders. But they're definitely, testing the checkout area. How are they making that more efficient? Actually, the Walmart neighborhood that's in my neighborhood actually changed to the new format where it's not different lanes. It's one lane with a mix of aid assisted checkout with a cashier and then self checkout. And it was kind of a mind-boggling experience when I went through it, because there's one long line now, so that's a bit of a consumer kind of shock, right? Because people don't like seeing lines, even if they move fast. And then you get directed to whatever cashier is open, so it could be manned or unmanned. And luckily, I was sent to a manned cashier. But yeah, we'll see a lot of store innovation now. I think we do consider food service to be part of the retail economy, and they have just been really pushing hard new formats. And you can kind of see this like with Apple's Express stores now. Like retailers are definitely preparing for a COVID world. So Apple in the retail world now has a smaller store footprint that's focused mainly on purchases. smaller square footage, that they're rolling out kind of aggressively. But I've just found the whole food service industry to be really innovative in changing the actual store model with more drive-through lanes, more in-store pickup lanes. The way they use technology to direct people to take orders has been impressive. So yeah, I think that's another area that we're going to see in 2021 is just new store formats to address the issues that go with the pandemic, which is people aren't in their offices, so they're at home. So your location needs to change. They don't want to spend time in your store, so you need a smaller size with the right assortment that's tailored to that zip code. And you probably, unfortunately, need fewer stores overall because of the rise in digital commerce. So I think you'll see the store, and then there's still a lot to do in e-commerce like we were talking about. Like there's so much that you can do in user design to make it a more entertaining and more discovery focused, pleasant shopping experience. So I think we'll see a lot more kind of cool digital initiatives coming from retailers in 2021 as well.
How exciting 2021 is going to be. What a shift. It's the biggest shift that I could have ever imagined coming into 2020, going into 2021. Who knew this is how things would be? Thank you so much, Michelle, for all of your insight and data that you brought to the show. And what a pleasure it's been to talk with you. Again, just for our audience, maybe where they can find you personally.
Ooh, you can find me everywhere. You can find me on Twitter, which I'm also addicted to. My handle is MG Talks Retail. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm on TikTok, but I only lurk. So you really can't find me.
No renegade dances from Michelle.
No, that is... Yeah, I'm there for the puppies and the millennials dancing to hits from the 2000s.
That's the best. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, Michelle. Michelle Grant, the Senior Manager for Strategy and Insights in Retail and Consumer Goods at Salesforce. We did it. Put a check mark next to it. It's my favorite interview of the year. Wrap it. Shut it down. We did it.
Thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it. It was so much fun. Thank you for reaching out and having me on. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to listen.
Awesome. Thank you for listening. And hey, if you want to support the show, the best way to do that right now, do it. Stop what you're doing, go iTunes, type it in, and give us a 5-star on iTunes. It costs you nothing but 3 seconds of your time, and share this with a coworker. I know that this is going to be valuable as you start to plan your business strategies for next year. Go ahead and send that over, and subscribe to Future Commerce Insiders. It's our weekly essay about all things that you need, not to get a bag of tricks or employ tactics, but to think about like what the future of retail is going to be and how you can shape the future of your business by understanding what tomorrow looks like. You can do that right now at futurecommerce.fm/subscribe. All right. Thank you for listening to Future Commerce.